Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my stepdaughter's college? My 48 male stepdaughter Hannah, 18 female, is going to attend college. I know her for around 4 years since I married her mother. The issue though is that we've never gotten along well. I have tried, but she always says that she doesn't like me and wants her real dad. When I try to tell her stuff or scold her for behaving out of order, she'd say, "You are not my father, you're just some stranger." My wife family asked her to behave properly as well, but she doesn't care to listen, and in the end, she stopped telling her as well. I had to pick Hannah up at school once, and when a couple of people who did not know I was her stepdad asked her who I was, she said, "Oh, he's a servant actually," in front of my face. I was extremely mad at that, and it even resulted in a huge argument, although she played it off as a joke. But this was the last straw, and that happened a good few months back. After that, I have always treated her as if she's invisible, and barely had any interactions with her unless absolutely necessary. Well, she talked to me presently and said she's got to apply to college and wants me to pay her fees now. I refused and asked her to ask her real dad, who refused to pay for it himself. She began to protest and said that I'm affecting her education and that I cannot do that. But I did not relent and said she's not my business now. My wife says refusing to pay is wrong and that I overreacted even though she's not been nice to me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Tell her you can't afford it on your servant's wages. Seriously, her 2 birth parents have had 18 years to save up for college education. You have had 4 years of putting up with her rudeness, with no backup or support from your wife, her mother, and she has the temerity to speak to you now that she wants your money? Now she can have 4 years of missing out on her dream college, and think over how treating someone as less than human isn't a good life strategy. I feel the "don't bite the hand that feeds you" is kind of fitting in this case. It's plain stupidity to be rude for 4 years and then suddenly expect someone will happily throw money at you. Right? And act like it's a joke. She wasn't even the bare minimum of civil to him. The ATM should be closed. Even worse is there are people here saying that he should have sucked it up, and on top of that saying the servant comment wasn't that bad. Not the a-hole. She's going to refuse to accept you as her parent and degrade and disrespected you 24/7, including in front of other people. Yet, she wants one of the biggest benefits of you technically being her parent. She's clearly being selfish and manipulative, and I'm not surprised her mother is defending her, given how her daughter acts. In the end, it's your money and you're entitled to spend it however you please. And I would also beg of you to not pay squat regarding her college. Like I said, she refuses to treat you like her parent, but at the same time expects all the benefits of you being her parent. Nope. It looks like Hannah finally learned a good adult lesson about consequences. At 18, she is not owed money by anyone, and if you ruin a relationship, then you risk not being helped in times of need. It must have felt good to tell that brat she should fix her own education. Where was your wife for the last 4 years? And why is she not backing you up here? Why did she not save money for her daughter's future? She has known for the last 18 years this was likely coming. Not the a-hole, and your wife and stepdaughter are a-holes. The wife is definitely a huge a-hole in my opinion. She's ignoring the husband, OP, and the daughter's emotional needs. It sounds like her daughter should have been in therapy ages ago, before this whole thing escalated to the point where OP avoids his stepdaughter altogether. That's not a healthy environment at all, and I would be so uncomfortable if I was living with them. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband's kids, 24 female and 22 male, that my house isn't their family home and it's not my fault their mom lost theirs? I married my husband 2 years ago. He has 2 kids, 24 female and 22 male. He had a very nasty divorce from their mom that was fought out over the course of years. Part of the reason for the marriage ending was she had a drug problem and blew through their savings and was running up credit cards he didn't know about to pay for it. The divorce finalized when the youngest was 16. She wanted the house and the divorce, which was a big part of the fight, and she ended up getting it. She immediately moved in her addict's boyfriend and another couple they used with, and the house ended up getting destroyed and falling into foreclosure, and they then proceeded to squat in it and had to be forcibly removed. Because my husband and his ex ended up also having to file bankruptcy, he had been living in a friend's basement when I met him, due to his credit being wrecked. Fast forward, we are married, he moves into my house, got a prenup, and he can't be on a mortgage due to his credit anyways. His ex and kids are living with grandparents. His kids and ex don't like me. They refer to me as that C-word. But at this point, they're all adults, so I'm not going to force things with them. Grandparents recently had to sell their home and they're now living with their mom's friends. They asked if they could move in with us, and I said no. Both got angry and started telling me that this was their dad's home. and that makes this their family home too. And it wasn't up to me if they could live there or not. They started spouting off every insult they could think of. I interrupted them and told them it, in fact, was not their family home. And if they were looking for their family home, they need to go talk to their mom, because she chopped it up and put it up her nose. And that wasn't my problem. A huge part of the reason I don't want them here is that their mom has since squatted multiple places, forcing roommates to have to threaten her with eviction to get her out, and basically told the last one she would leave for a certain amount of money. The kids and her are very close, and I don't want that happening in my house. We also have reason to believe the oldest may be using. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole for keeping your solely owned home for yourself. But I do question what agreements you had with the dad of the kids before the two of you got married. Yes, they're adults, but only as of recently. It seems like you and their dad have it firmly defined and aligned on your role in their lives before marrying, which makes me lean toward everyone sucks here. We got married when the youngest was 20. They said they didn't want to be involved with me. I respected that. So amazing that they feel entitled to move in, when they have stated previously that they want nothing to do with you, and referred to you as that C-word. Do they imagine moving in and having you fawn and slave away over them, all while they maintain their current attitudes and disrespect? Not the a-hole. And where is your husband in all this? They shouldn't even be talking to you. He should be the one setting them straight, and let them know it is actually your house. Don't understand why you marry a guy with this background and also have credit issues. Sounds like a recipe for drama. My marriage with him is fine. He contributes and has a job and makes his own money, and we have no drama aside from this, since he tends to spend his time with the kids away from the house, their choice. His spending habits are responsible, and their financial issues being caused by her tracks with everything I've seen. Your husband should be on your side, is he? He is. Not the a-hole, but I would have your husband deal with his adult children. They should not be referring to you that way, and they especially should not be claiming your home as their family home with their adults. Sounds like they have some growing up to do. Sounds like they need jobs and to find their own place to live. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she was naive when she thought her daughter would suddenly see her stepdaughter as a true sister when they didn't get along before? My sister has an 18-year-old daughter, Casey. It was just the two of them for 10 years. Casey never knew her dad, which means my sister had sole custody of her. When she was little, Casey used to talk a lot about how there were these mean girls in school. One of them, Valerie, Casey disliked more than the others. She was the worst. My sister did her fair share of complaining about the dad too, especially when she had to replace and erase her a couple of weeks into school starting because Valerie broke it. When Casey was 9, my sister and Valerie's dad started to spend time together, and then they got married a year later. There was a lot of shock on my part, seeing as my sister knew how Casey felt about Valerie, and given her own complaints about Valerie's dad allowing her to get away with so much. But he's an attractive guy, and I guess that won out over everything else. The announcement to Casey went about as well as can be expected. She was furious at her mom. More so on our wedding day, because my sister wanted the girls to match and look like sisters for the first time. Valerie used the wedding to taunt some of Casey's friends, saying she was going to replace them with her. It only added fuel to an already bright fire. Casey ultimately refused to take part in the wedding on the day and sat with me. Things in their household were tense for years afterward. My sister would get upset that Casey was so mad about it, that she didn't change her opinion of Valerie at all, and that she would very strongly deny that they were sisters. About 2 years after she got married, my sister decided they all needed family therapy. It was only the last 2 years that Valerie appears to have grown, and from the outside it does not look like she's the bully she once was. But Casey still cares nothing for her. Both girls graduated in May, and Casey moved out and in with me, wanting to get away from Valerie. The other day, my sister and I met up for lunch, and she was venting about Casey not talking to Valerie at all, and how Valerie had wanted them to meet up every day after her classes started, but Casey didn't even answer her. They go to different colleges, but both are local. She said she thought after all these years, Casey would see Valerie as a true sister, and even if she didn't like her, there would be some sense of family loyalty there. I was shocked to hear my sister say that. She noticed and asked me why I looked like a fish. I told her I had never expected her to be so naive to think Casey would feel that way when she hated Valerie long before she, my sister, met her husband. My sister's attitude changed very fast, and she told me that I'm the naive little brother to think these things don't change when family bonds are created. I told her that family bonds aren't created that easily when there is already bad blood present, no matter how much she might want them to be there. She told me I owe her an apology, and she'll be waiting for it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your sister chose her partner over her daughter, bringing her bully into her home and trying to force them to play nice. Her daughter will never forgive, forget, or get over that. Well done for supporting your niece. Always. She's always going to have a place with my family. Honestly, we love having her live with us. Thank goodness the daughter has some sane family members. I can't imagine forcing a child to be in the same room as her bully. Not the a-hole. Your sister is delusional to think family bonds were created between two adolescent enemies, one of whom was actively bullying the other just because their parents got married. This isn't a Disney special. It's always crazy to me to encounter people who have this highly idealized vision in their head and the way they will absolutely demolish their relationships thinking the ideal will be realized. Your sister let her daughter down. This might have been salvageable if Casey's dislike of Valerie had been taken into account from early on. Your sister and her husband did not give it enough time or attention. I feel really sad for Casey, but honestly it sounds like she's doing alright. She isn't obligated to have a loving, warm relationship with Valerie. I can't imagine how this will play out moving forward, aside from poor Casey being essentially estranged from the whole lot. But you are not the a-hole for trying to draw your sister's attention to her delusion. She'll always have my family and me. I've promised Casey that. Our family has always been small. It was just my sister and me for years. Then she came along, then I got married and had my kids. But I will never turn my back on her or let her down. Not the a-hole. What you said was long overdue. She betrayed her daughter in a grotesque, selfish, cruel, and unforgivable way. I'm the naive little brother to think these things don't change when family bonds are created. Of course she has it totally the wrong way around. She's the naive older sister if she thinks these things do change, and that family bonds are automatically created just because the two parents got it on. Casey is gone from her mother's life and is not ever coming back. By the way, from the outside it does not look like she's the bully she once was. Smart observation there by you. She's got better at hiding it, more subtle in her tortures. At this point, Valerie doesn't have to bully Casey. She won. Her dad married Casey's mom and together the two adults choose Valerie. Casey was dismissed from the start. She only needs to pretend to act sisterly and friendly, then complain to Casey's mom that she is trying, but Casey just rejects her. Then mom finishes the job by getting on Casey's back about not having any family loyalty. I'm glad OP is in her life, and hope she gets away from her awful mother and stepsister. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take care of my stepdaughter? My 28 female live-in boyfriend, 32 male, has a daughter 11 female with his ex 30 female. I'll call her my stepdaughter even though I'm not legally married to her father, because for all purposes we live together. She lives with her mother during the week and spends the weekend with us. However, her father occasionally has to work on Saturdays and I take care of her by myself. Last weekend, she got her first period while she was out with me, so I helped her and explained how things worked and so on. I later found out her mother was livid because she called my boyfriend and gave him an earful that I didn't immediately call her because she would pick her daughter up. Because as the mother, she was the one that had to be with her daughter during her first period, and I took this away from her. What bothered me the most is that my boyfriend did defend me, which he says was because he didn't want to start an argument and make an already difficult relationship with his ex even trickier. So I told him I won't take care of their daughter by myself anymore if I'm to get blamed for whatever decision I make while I'm with her. And if he has to work on a Saturday, then he should get her only on Sunday or change the visitation arrangement. Am I the a-hole here? Stepdaughter was fortunate to have a caring adult around who could help her through a stressful experience. Nice that you could be there for her. That said, if your boyfriend isn't going to bat for you against his ex's weird demands, you're in for a world of hurt for every other first that stepdaughter experiences while she's alone with you. If the only way your boyfriend understands this is because he feels the pain of his inaction, so be it. Not the a-hole to hold him accountable. Or maybe he told that his current housing situation might change if he keeps throwing his landlord under the bus. Oh man, not the a-hole. Hard situation. He should have defended you. Mom shouldn't have blamed you. If this was something she was concerned about, she should have asked him about it in advance. This just isn't cool. If he's not going to defend you, then how are you supposed to be supportive in this situation? Just not cool for you. Imagine how the daughter would have felt if you would have called her mom about it. Like that could have come off embarrassing and like a big deal was being made. Sounds like you did the right thing. Not the a-hole. You were not respected despite your commitment to these relationships. He could have said, "We are not mind readers. We did not disrespect you. We had no idea the role you wanted to play. Please be proactive in stating your preferences in the future." Notice the we. He does not present you as a united front to her or others, but when it is convenient, he'll accept your dedication to his daughter. This is BS. She took this away from herself. Mom created this outcome. She never conveyed her preferences for her daughter's first period. This is completely on her, then had a huge reactive behavior after the fact. If this or another event is important, either parent needs to state this verbally and in writing to the other. Refusing to care for your stepdaughter by making dad present on his days is fine. However, continue to support and cultivate the relationship you and her already have. The child should not be aware of your request and his need to change schedules. Kids have no control of their parents' obligations. They simply want to be loved, accepted, and not the source of relationship friction in either home. Best to you. Am I the a-hole for reminding my ex-stepdaughter that I wasn't her father and not committing to an earlier promise? When my ex-stepdaughter was 14, she said she wanted to study abroad in the UK, but it would be too expensive, so I told her that I'd start saving for that then so that we could actually send her there. I opened a savings account the next day for that, and it was supposed to cover tuition, housing, and some allowance. The next year, her mother and I divorced. I still tried to maintain a relationship with her, but that ended quite sour when she said I wasn't her father, and I should stop being involved as if I was. I said alright, and that the ball would be in her court then, and we never saw each other again. That was until 2 days ago. She, 19, came knocking on my door. I invited her in. We sat down, and she asked me if I remembered that promise I'd made her when she was younger. I asked which one, and she said the college fund one. I said I did remember, and she said she wanted some of that money right now to cover expenses and that she'd use the rest to actually study abroad next year. In case you forgot, this was the first time we'd spoken for 4 years. So I told her that since we lost contact, I repurposed that money a long time ago, so there was unfortunately nothing there to give her. She was rather unhappy about that, and said something around the lines of, "Figured, you were always full of it. So much for I'll always be there, Dad." A call back to when we told her about the divorce, and I said I would still be in her life and she could still call me Dad. This obviously upset me, so I responded with the fact that she stonewalled me after the divorce, and reminded her that I wasn't her father like she'd said, so she had no right to complain. She left afterwards, and I got a call yesterday from her mother cussing out for ain't being it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It's pretty ridiculous of her to expect that the money would still be waiting for her after pretending you didn't exist for 4 years. She made it very clear that she didn't want a relationship after the divorce, and yet she still expects to reap the benefits you promised when you were close. And she isn't even going abroad. She just wants his money and will maybe go next year. Not even then if the grapevine says she's pregnant. Money is going to raise the baby. I would put money on her mother sending her. Not the a-hole. The divorce closed the bank of Dad, especially after she pushed you out of her life. You, as your stepfather, I'll save for your tuition. Divorce happens. She, you're not my father. Be gone. Adios. You, okay, call if you change your mind. Hint, she did not. 4 years later, she, where is my money? The entitlement is really, really strong with her. Not the a-hole. She's just being opportunistic. She knew how to find you, right? She could have sent a message to you anytime in the past 4 years but waited until she wanted some cash. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling off my wife because she promised my time for this coming weekend? My wife, 35 female, and I, 36 male, have a 5-year-old son. We both work full-time, but my wife sometimes needs to work on weekends, maybe 2 to 3 weekends a month. I enjoy the time alone with my son when she is at work on weekends, as I think it really gives us time to bond, just the two of us. But my wife has a habit of arranging playdates and other activities for the days that she works on weekends. I find it incredibly disrespectful to me, and I have told her many times that I don't like her doing it. This coming weekend, she has to work on Saturday. Last night, she told me that our son asked if he could have some friends from his kindergarten class over this weekend. She agreed, and they invited a few friends over to play on Saturday. When she told me, I got mad at her. I told her it was BS that she promised my time like that, when she isn't going to be here. I told her it's not right that she offered me to supervise multiple kids like that without talking to me first. She asked if I had anything planned, and I told her that no, I did not have anything planned, but that's not the point. She said that we shouldn't be discouraging our son from wanting to be social and we should be happy as making friends. When she realized how upset I was, she offered to cancel with the other parents or try to reschedule. But she said that our son was really looking forward to having friends over and she didn't want to disappoint him. I felt like that was a low blow because then it makes me the bad guy if I tell her to cancel. So I told her that we can go ahead with the play dates, but that I am taking all day Sunday for myself. I told her that I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but that she's going to be fully responsible for our son that day. I told her that I don't care if all I'm going to do is sit and watch football all day, but that she gets to be the one to watch our son. She got mad at me because that's her only day off all week and she just wants to relax too. I told her that's not my fault, and that if she wants to promise my time on weekends, that I should at least get to decide when I want time for myself. She told me I'm being petty, and that my son and his friends will be fine playing by themselves for the most part. She said it will only be for a few hours and she already told the other parents that we aren't going to be feeding them dinner or anything like that. So all I have to do is make sure no one gets hurt. I told her that next time she wants to arrange a playdate, that she can schedule it for when she's able to at least help or talk to me first. I reminded her that this isn't the first time she's done something like this, and that I'm tired of her scheduling my time for me like I'm her employee. She thinks I'm blowing this out of proportion, and since I didn't have anything planned, it's not that hard to just sit around the house and watch kids play for a few hours. Not a-hole. How would she feel if you volunteered her time before even asking her about it? I think the best way to handle this, if she's unwilling to budge on at least talking to you first, is to give her a taste of her own medicine. You're equal partners, and while care for your child is implied and joint, that doesn't extend to dropping other kids on one another. It's rude as heck, and not respectful of each other's time. You're justified in your irritation. At least get her to a point where she discusses it with you first. He did. He volunteered her to watch her own son that Sunday so he can get some rest too. And she got angry. He's not the a-hole. She can dish out his time, but he can't do it to her. They don't seem to be communicating well, but she needs to respect his time as well. That was a more petty and reactive way to manage it. It doesn't really establish the point for her. These situations tend to work out better if you can recreate the full conditions almost entirely. Let her get mad about it, and then draw her attention to the immediate parallel. Doing this while she's already feeling defensive over the situation will just make her more defensive and doesn't really establish the point in a constructive manner. Psychology is our friend. Not the a-hole. My husband and I did not volunteer each other for things. I don't even make myself an appointment that will leave him on the spot on an evening or weekend without consulting him first, and he does the same for me. Yes, I'd like to set up a playdate for X time. Let me check with my husband first to make sure we have a clear schedule. And then doing that is not that hard. Right. Who volunteers someone for something, not knowing if they even have plans? Or don't have plans? It's not your life. It's theirs. My wife did this to me exactly once in our relationship where she didn't consult me beforehand. What she didn't know was that I had a roof install scheduled for work. I had to delay and ended up losing the contract just asking for it. Lost about $3,000 because of the situation. Not the a-hole. I actually think you should have let her cancel the playdate. She's doing this because she gets all the credit and none of the work. All the parents are thanking her and telling her how thoughtful she is. She gets to feel like a good mom while you do the work. Not cool. This will only stop when you actually start making her cancel these plans. Until she has to feel the embarrassment of going back on her promise, she's never going to stop. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend she should work less if she wants more time with her husband? About 7 months ago, my friend Tori, 34 female, began to vent to us about some of her marital problems. Namely that her husband, Jack, 35 male, doesn't have time for her. At first, we let her vent and just listened to her and gave her support. I know that Jack is a stay-at-home dad that works part-time from home, and Tori's pretty big into her career. At the time, I didn't question how things were when she got home because I just wanted to listen to her. Since then, she's had the same complaints every time we see her, and some of our friends started to offer her advice. Like tell Jack how he was hurting her feelings, and tell him what she needed from him. It sounded like good advice. This year, our kids are in the same kindergarten class, so Jack, myself, and another friend have been taking turns carpooling the kids. Whenever I drop their kid off and take them inside, I would always see Jack finishing up cleaning, laundry, cooking, and other household chores. Tori also now has 2 nights a week where she either comes to one of our houses after work
or she goes out with her coworkers after work. Yet when we see her, she still has the same complaint about Jack not having time for her. This last time I saw Tori, some of our friends had started to talk down about him to her about the whole situation. I asked Tori if Jack is still doing most of the childcare and housework while working from home, and she said yes. I asked her if she gets paid overtime for working so many hours that they need the money, and she said no. She's on salary, but she wants to get to the next level. I told her it sounds like she had been misrepresenting the situation. And it doesn't sound like Jack doesn't have time for her, but she may not be making time for him. And if she wants time with him, she should cut back on her hours so she's home at a reasonable time. And maybe not go socialize 2 nights a week while he's at home. Tori started to cry and tell me I was shaming her for having her career, and our friend agreed. I said it wasn't like that at all and that there was nothing wrong with her having a career. But if all the other advice hadn't been working after so many months, maybe she needed to look at how she was also contributing to the problem. Now they're both upset and barely talking to me. Was I so wrong to tell her that? Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments.
Not the a-hole.
She's doing the same thing to her husband what men used to do to their wives. It wasn't okay when they did it to us, and it's not okay to do it to them. You can't prioritize your work and social life, then complain that your spouse, who is filling in all of the blanks, doesn't have time to prioritize you. Running a household is a lot of work. And if a working woman has a stay-at-home husband who is doing that work, he deserves the same respect that we all would expect a working husband to give to a stay-at-home wife. This right here. My husband and I are working parents with a new baby, and I'm back from maternity leave and attempting to recoup my lost progress and try to make a play to manage a new restructured department. It means lots of tired days at work, so he has been pitching in more at home and with baby. But we have our 2 nights a week of movie date nights after the baby is asleep to prioritize our marriage, and we schedule having our respective me and social time so we don't burn out. It doesn't sound Eopie's Fred is prioritizing anything but herself. You aren't shaming her for having a career. That's a straw man. The situation seems to be exactly how you're seeing it.
Not the a-hole.
It doesn't sound like Tori's even trying to make time for her husband. Her husband sounds like he's got a full plate and is supporting her advancing her career. I feel like she's falling into this trap of having it all. The kids, the career, the relationship. Having it all is a myth. There are only so many hours of the day, so many days in a year. If she wants to advance her career, that's fine, but it will come at the cost of time with her family. She has to accept that. Not the a-hole. Your question was completely legitimate, and frankly, overdue considering that she complains about the same issue over and over again without trying to do anything to change the situation. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out of my house for being crazy? I'm 22 female. I'm a stay-at-home mom/student to a 3-month-old boy. My husband is a line cook, so he's not earning the world of money right now. I don't work because childcare in my area would cost more than what I would earn in a lot of jobs available to me. My sister Jane works part-time, but she only pays the internet bill. She's been living with us for 6-ish months now since my parents are at their wits' end with her mental illness. Jane has orthorexia, OCD, bipolar, and severe anxiety. She's got this idea in her head recently that the brand of formula I feed my son is going to harm him. She keeps trying to get me to change the brand he's on. I can't, because the brand I use is the cheapest, which is all we can currently afford, and the baby tolerates this brand amazingly well. My sister thinks I should be breastfeeding the baby but agrees that the ship has sailed. She still loses her mind every time I go to make a bottle. She's in a mild manic episode right now, which are usually manageable and tolerable, but this one takes the cake. In the 15 freaking minutes it took me to shower while baby was napping, she managed to get rid of most food she thinks is harmful. Isn't open the containers and dump them on the floor. A lot of that was baby formula. She said if I continued to feed it to my son, he would die, and if he died, she'd be responsible since she did nothing. I lost it and ripped her a new one. I told her she's absolutely insane and that she belongs in a secure home or something where she can't harm other people, etc, etc, etc. I told her she's super crazy and to get the heck out of my house before I destroy everything she owns to see how she likes it. My parents dropped over the half-used spare formula from their house, but they think I'm being harsh on my sister and that even I've gone a bit too far here. My husband agrees, but also agrees with me that our son needs to eat and my sister needs help. He thinks I went too far insulting her mental health. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your sister is your parents' responsibility. Your son is yours. You do not owe anything to your sister, and she can move back to your parents and she can pay rent or something with that money she is making at her part-time job. A young baby is hard to take care of, and you don't have to give your sister the care your parents should be doing. Your parents are the a-hole and should never comment on you having to deal with your sister. What the heck is wrong with them? If I were you, I would not kick your sister out before having a plan where she could stay due to her mental health. But your parents should take their responsibility as her parents and find her help. Your focus should be on the baby, your husband, and yourself. Parents kicked her out first, then get mad when someone else can't tolerate her behavior? And in the US, there is a formula shortage, and doing this would literally cause severe harm. What if you can't replace their formula? That is severely mentally ill territory to risk a baby's food source. It's not dramatic to lose your patience/leniency when she does something so deplorable due to her own issues. Ask your husband when and how you're supposed to get new formula. Then ask him if you overreacted. OP, don't let her back into your home. This is too much for your own family unit. Your parents only think you're being too harsh with your sister because they don't want her moving in with them. Especially with the formula shortage over the last 2 years, I would go into a rampage if anyone destroyed my baby's source of food that was scarce and expensive. I truly hope your sister can get the help she needs, but you're not the one who should be obligated to help considering you gave birth a few months ago. Your parents are a-holes for insisting you care for her while you are juggling an infant, school, and home.
Not the a-hole.
This isn't just a manic episode. That's psychosis. That's a full-blown delusion. Not the a-hole, your infant isn't safe around her. What happens when sister decides that OP is killing the baby and that she needs to take him somewhere safe away from OP?
Not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for excluding my stepmom from helping plan my wedding? My stepmom has been married to my dad since I was 7. She was the other woman in my parents' marriage, and she was also supposed to be my mom's best friend. I didn't know her very well pre-affair reveal. She lived in another city, and apparently most of my life and all of my sister's life, she and our dad had been sleeping together. This is not something I was aware of as a kid. My sister and I knew we didn't have parents who got along after the divorce. We could sense the tension. Once or twice we had an idea mom hated our stepmom, but she never said or did anything directly in front of us. The vibe was just there. It did not stop us loving our stepmom. We found out what happened when we were 17 and 19. We felt so bad for our mom, but our stepmom had always been good to us, and dad was good to us, so we tried not to let it change things. After my fiancé and I announced our engagement in social media, my stepmom wrote a post about how she dreamed of this day when I was born, how she had been so excited to watch her very first baby grow up and get married, how she and dad had talked about it before I could walk. She tagged my dad, but she also tagged some friends who knew her back then who were also friends with my mom. The post was distasteful. It honestly was exposing that she had always planned to have the affair. It did change how I felt. I also told her to take it down and apologize, and she told me she did not regret the post. And why wasn't I happy she loved me that much? I accused her of trying to rub it in my mom's face, that she had stabbed her in the back and won the love of my sister and me, after betraying her with our dad like she did. She told me it was 20 years ago, and mom should be over it. I decided not to include her in any wedding planning. She's a wedding planner as a profession, and I know she would want to, but I'm not happy with her post. Mom was so happy when I told her. But when my stepmom wanted to know when she'd be dress shopping with me and what I want her help with, I told her I did not want her involved in any wedding planning. She and my dad are saying I am overreacting and should not be treating her this way when she has been a damn good parent to me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She's creepy as heck. Her firstborn? It's like she's been planning on trying to take your mom's life from the beginning. She's sick and shouldn't be anywhere near your wedding. That's how it read to me. It also read to me like she had planned the affair with my dad before anything had happened for real. I was weirded out too about stepmom's post as well. Her firstborn? OP, your bio mom gets an award for being an amazing parent. She put your happiness above her own. Go mom. Not the a-hole. People's actions have consequences. Your stepmom's actions 20 years ago have consequences now. That is something your stepmom needs to deal with, not you. I need to say, go bio mom, one more time. That had to have been extremely difficult for your bio mom, but she did it for you and your sibling. Not the a-hole. My God, how dense is this woman? She practically put it out there for everyone to see that she knowingly was having an affair with your dad while your mom was pregnant with you. If this was me, she'd be lucky to get a damned invite to the wedding. Tell her she is reaping the consequences of mess around and find out 20 years later. I'm practically spitting fire at this woman's audacity. She and my dad are saying I am overreacting and should not be treating her this way when she has been a damn good parent to me. No, she is not being a good parent to you by putting up that post, knowing it was going to hurt your mom. That's being a something I can write or I will get banned. Not the a-hole. Her mask slipped, and now you know who she really is. Let them threaten to not come. Let them insult you and your mom. Let them make themselves out to be victims. Your mother was not only screwed over by the two closest people in your life, but she was going to be pushed out by them too for your wedding. Her post showed that she would make herself the mother of the bride. She was going to take it over. I wouldn't even invite her. This exactly. Please keep any future children away from this woman. She gives the hand that rocks the cradle vibes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom that her son isn't my brother? I, 22 male, have never had a great relationship with my half-brother, 29 male, mom's first child, because he hates me. I am the result of my parents' infidelity and unfaithfulness to their first spouses. Both my parents were married and had kids. Mom had 29 male and dad had 33 female and 32 male ages today. I'm not an affair child though, since my parents divorced their spouses first and then had me 2 years later. While I had/have a great relationship with my father's kids, it wasn't the same when it came to my mom's child. I guess he was having a hard time because of the divorce, and as he saw me as the result of it, I became his anger target. He treated me so poorly, called me names, etc. My mom scolded him and my dad hated the way he treated me, but he never stopped. He was on weekends with us, but when he turned 16, my mom and his dad decided to not make him come to our house anymore. So my mom went out on weekends to spend time with him. I haven't seen him a lot since then, just like 2 or 3 times, and the last time was for my grandma's funeral December last year. He and my mom have a great relationship though, which I'm happy for them, but I no longer consider him my brother because of how awful he treated me. He asked me to meet a couple of months ago at his daughter's birthday, but I didn't go. My mom says that he wanted to publicly apologize. I'm graduating college this December and I have decided to invite just my siblings. I don't consider 29 male a sibling. And when my mom heard what I was planning, she asked me why I was playing favorites by excluding him. I told her that I don't consider him family because of how he treated me. She says that she understands how I feel, but it happened when he was a child and having a hard time. He has changed and wanted to apologize to me. I told her I didn't care, and for me, he is just my mom's child but not a brother to me. And I stated I only have 2 siblings. And she proceeded to cry. It happened 4 days ago, and she has barely talked to me. And my dad says I was a bit rude about this. The only reason for him to publicly apologize, if that was actually his intent, is to put pressure on you to accept. This is for his own benefit, not yours. If he wants to apologize, he can do it privately, not the a-hole. He had a lot of time to apologize. Agreed that the public apology was a power move to force the acceptance. Not the a-hole. Keep your distance from him if you chose. He had 13 years to work up the desire to apologize to OP, and yet OP is expected to just forgive him instantaneously? Not the a-hole. If he's sorry for how he treated you, he could write you a letter, or just tell you himself that he wants to apologize instead of randomly inviting you to stuff you're supposed to pretend you have a normal sibling relationship, let alone trying to drag you into some weird public show of remorse. And even then, you're under no obligation to give him a chance, when nothing in your entire experience of dealing with him has primed you to expect anything good. He spent your whole life building this rift, and is going to have to live with it. Public show of remorse is clearly to make himself good. Older brother may be repentant, but being apologetic doesn't entitle you to forgiveness. Older brother needs to accept that he was a massive a-hole and find a way to apologize to you remotely, and accept that it's up to you to decide if you want to let him in. Sucks for your mom and her image of a perfect family, but she's the one most at fault for setting up the situation here. Her tears are, hopefully, ones of guilt and self-reflection. But I'd expect it's more a pity party. Enjoy your day with the family you choose, and don't back down. Your feelings are valid and you don't have to defend them. You only have to assert them boldly and proudly, not a-hole. A? Is he repentant? Or does he just want others to think he is? I can understand, but obviously not condone, his behavior as a child. But if you want to apologize to someone for treating them awfully for years, you don't do it publicly. By 29, he knows, or should know, how to properly apologize to someone. He knows you don't do it in a situation where they're ambushed and have pressure to accept. It's his behavior as an adult that gets me. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my stepdaughter she's lucky I treat her as my own? I, 44 female, have 2 children with my husband. 2 boy and 3 girl, and a bonus daughter, Emily, 18 female. My stepdaughter has been living with us for 6 months this past year. She moved in because she told us her mother kicked her out since they didn't have a good relationship, and her mother said she was too problematic. Since her moving in, I've been very welcoming and I've spent more than enough money to help Emily get on her feet. This includes work shoes, comforter sets for her bed, hair products, clothing, and underwear. I told her that she could live here as long as she needed, but since her moving here, she's become a burden to both my children and I. My children and I are used to a regimen of waking up, spending time with my husband, him dropping them off to daycare, and he goes off to work and when he gets home. I cook, clean, and we spend the rest of our night with the kids. My stepdaughter has become a burden. She has become entitled, and whenever she needs anything financially, she will ask either myself or my husband. When I bought her work uniform, she kept the job for 3 weeks and then quit because she didn't like her co-workers. She has taken most of my savings, taken the time from my children to my husband, and used that time for herself, and had been extremely unappreciative for what I've done for her. I told her she needed to figure out a living plan because she is 18 and a legal adult and that she needs to start adulting. She mentioned how she was in school, online, and I told her that wasn't enough since there are more hours in the day, and she can do more than just be lazy all day and use her computer as an excuse. She told me that I am jealous of her relationship with my husband, and I reminded her that she's living in our home rent-free. I told her that she should be lucky that I treat her as my own, because not everyone would do such with their stepchild. Editing for info. My husband thinks I am wrong for saying this to her and that what I did was harsh, but I don't see how when she's 18 years old and she's grown. Now for the top comments. You're writing the narrative, but you still come across as the a-hole. First off, since school isn't enough for her to do, why aren't you telling us about your own job? Because from the sound of it, you're a stay-at-home mom but without the kids. So just a stay-at-home wife? Also, it easily sounds like she worked at a toxic workplace, which is especially common at chains where uniforms need to be bought. What do you mean with taking the time from my children and use that time for herself? So she's being social with you guys? And out competing a 2 and a 3-year-old for attention? You believe that yourself? Also, not everyone would do such with their stepchild, except everyone who would want a good relationship with a child's partner absolutely would treat the stepchild like that. You're the a-hole. Yep, if her husband drops the kids at daycare, what is Opie doing all day? Posting nonsense on Reddit and dreaming up ways to destroy her family. Marinating in resentment. It's harsh because she isn't taking time away from his kids. She is his kid. This is something Dad needs to handle. You're the a-hole. And Opie certainly doesn't treat her like Opie's child. You're the a-hole, Opie, and completely oblivious. You're the a-hole. You most certainly did not treat her as one of your own. If you did, then you wouldn't have said that to her. You also told her she was living in your house. It's her dad's house, therefore it should be her home too. You do sound jealous that she's there interacting with her father in the evenings. You also don't sound like you were buying her extravagant things. You sound like you're providing just the basics. Everything you're complaining about is a typical teenager. Your children will be the same way. Last story. Am I the a-hole for having my girlfriend leave for helping my daughter? My daughter is 16 and has been really struggling with eating disorder. It's more managed now, but before it wasn't. Once I knew it took her to the doctor, a therapist, etc., etc. The doctors told us multiple times to, yes, eat what's needed for nutrition, but it's best to monitor it quietly so it's not like I'm forcing her to eat. And she's eating because she wants to, not being forced. Also, because it won't last if you force, so I'm doing it that way. I've been with my girlfriend for about a year and met my daughter a little while ago. And I guess they got close, and my daughter told her that she had an eating disorder, but from what I know, nothing more, nothing less. My girlfriend has been trying to help with this, and it would have to be effective helping. If it wasn't forceful helping. You know when you kind of force your helpfulness onto other people, but not really in the way they need? I do know when my daughter eats. She has meals that either she or I make, and she eats those. So when they're gone, I can see. The point being not to ask if she ate or not, because as the doctor said, it's a reminder, and she doesn't need to be reminded of what she has. And emotional support will do. Asking her if she ate won't. The other day, my girlfriend continued to go to my daughter and ask her if she ate, at what time and what she ate. This is bad, but the worst is asking how much calories it was. I pulled her aside and told her that she cannot ask those questions to her, and if she wants to help, to please try to do it in a different way. Take her out, socialize. They both like movies, books, shopping, bowling, etc., etc. They have a lot of the same interests. She seemed like she understood. Until I overheard her asking the same question again. She went into my daughter's room and asked her, "Did you eat?" My daughter said yeah, then proceeded to bombard her with questions about what she ate and the calories. At one point, she asked to see the food bowl so she could see if it was good in there. I brought her out of the room and told her that she either needed to stop asking those questions or leave, because those are in no way appropriate, kind, or helpful, and I shouldn't have to ask you multiple times when she knows it's not helping. She got mad saying that I was neglecting her needs, because she should know if she ate. I said I know she ate. There's a reason she has meals in there. Even if she didn't, she has no right to ask her that. I explained how I knew before this, so she was aware. She started getting upset, saying I was kicking her out for helping. She didn't realize she wasn't, but then still said it was just helping my daughter. And it was clear she was not even close to even trying to understand that she was not helping. That's why I told her she needed to go. I've told this to some family, but they said that she didn't know, and I just needed to be patient. But how many times do I have to explain the same thing until she knows? Edit, hey, to anyone saying, "Oh, well, what if your daughter doesn't mind?" Let her if she doesn't mind it. Even if she didn't, which she does. I'm not going to enable my daughter to check calories. Do we understand that that is part of an eating disorder? And not being sorry in doing so, never mind deliberately doing what the doctor said not to do. Not stay whole. You've explained to her several times that her helping isn't actually helping. I'd personally sit her down and say these are boundaries you cannot cross. She's not her mother. She hasn't spoken to the doctors with you or your daughter. If she can't respect you or your daughter's boundaries, then I suggest you call it a day. Because all that's going to happen is she will make your daughter's condition worse. You're a good dad and your daughter needs you. So step up and put your foot down. But how many times do I have to explain the same thing until she knows? I think you've reached the limit of attempting to explain why her actions are harmful. Your girlfriend isn't interested in listening, nor changing her behavior. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You are prioritizing your daughter as you should be doing. And as someone who has struggled with an eating disorder / currently working through it, such intrusive questions are very uncomfortable and might make one spiral. Your girlfriend needs to respect boundaries. And mentioning calories? It sounds like she doesn't respect you nor your daughter, and instead is trying to make it about herself so she can feel better. Some people need to get told a few times to make themselves realize that what they are doing isn't helping, but it seems like she doesn't care. I agree, and I really don't think it's that hard to understand. Just don't ask that. I don't understand why everyone's saying it's so hard. Am I the a-hole for not meeting my dying father? I have absolutely no contact with my parents. I don't talk to them, I don't visit them. To be honest, I'd rather never see them again in my life. This might sound bad, but I do have my reasons. I was kicked out of my parents' house the day after my 18th birthday. My father claimed that an 18-year-old is already an adult and they should be able to live by themselves. Just a heads up, I was still in high school when that took place. I worked part-time, but I couldn't afford housing. I slept on the streets for about a few weeks until I found a shelter. Not only that, but I had too many rough days after that. The streets are no place for anyone, especially someone that young. Through the help of some NGOs, I managed to finish school, get into a technical course for programming, and get a decent job. Now, 10 years after that, I just graduated college. I saved up to actually do that. However, I can't forgive my parents. I never contacted them and they didn't contact me. That was until yesterday. Somehow my family, uncle, got my phone contact and sent me a message. My father is extremely sick, and it is likely that he might pass away in the next few days. My uncle told me that my father wanted to see me one last time and asked if I could go there. I said I would not go. I absolutely resent and bear a grudge against my father and mother. He kicked me out, and she did absolutely nothing to stop it. As you might assume, my uncle started to get heated and called me heartless, ungrateful, and an a-hole among other things. And I'm pretty sure most of my family feels the same way about me. Honestly, I'm only asking here for my sanity's sake. I will not be meeting them, but I understand that the man is dying. And by not going, I'm denying something to a dying man, which might make me an a-hole. However, even if it does, I do not care. I'd rather be an a-hole than see those two ever again. Now for the top comments. He's an adult. He's old enough to die on his own. F your uncle and F your dad. Not the a-hole. And where was this uncle when your parents threw you out? Did he stand up for you against your parents then? Honestly, where was anyone of Opie's family? Let's be honest, they probably have no clue what happened and were told an alternate reality from the parents. Came here to say this. The parents probably lied and said he left on his own and went no contact. Opie, you're not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. The day he kicked you out is the day you were no longer his child. And just because he's dying does not mean you have to forgive him for what he did. You have every right to not visit him, and he's most likely not gonna apologize and try to justify what he did. He'd probably try to take credit. If I hadn't put you in the streets, you never would have developed the initiative and work ethic to succeed. Now change my bad pen. Now change my bad pen. He's only doing this for himself and maybe have a good/better image. I know what I did was wrong, but I'm asking for forgiveness type of thing. And if he wasn't dying, he would have never tried to reach out to OP. 100% not the a-hole, but I'm a bit of a vindictive witch at times, so I'd visit, just once, to tell your dad that you wanted to check that he's actually dying, and will never forgive him and that you hope this hunts him until his last breath. Earth-scorched and salted. But you may need therapy if you go this route. In fact, you may need therapy regardless. Good luck, OP, and look after yourself. I like your style. Personally, I thought that there would be many nights when things were awful and OP may have retained hope his parents would regret their decision and help him by taking him out of the hellish situation he was in. So 1. I'd vacillate over the not going, maybe and maybe not, until I heard he was really sick. 2. Then agree to go and cancel a few times, to get their hopes up. 3. And when they were about to figure out, say, for sure going today at X. 4. Call from on the way there, and ask to be in speakerphone so dad and mom could hear my voice. 5. Then tell them, for many nights I had false hopes you would regret kicking me out, and be kind, find me and offer help. But you never did. I wanted you to know the feeling of that hope being ripped away before you died. I never intend to visit. 6. And maybe laugh. But maybe that's a tad much. Next story. Am I the a-hole for being honest with my parents about my childhood? I, 24 female, was poor growing up. We had to rough it throughout my childhood and teenage years. College was funded solely by scholarships and awful part-time jobs. I don't hold any resentment towards my parents over this, but it was hard at a time. I think I would still be struggling now had things been different. I met my partner, 31 male, during my sophomore year, and we've been together for just under 5 years. His family was in the exact opposite financial situation as mine. He has an established position in his father's company. He has since we met, and works remotely. Since my graduation in May, we've spent almost the entire summer with his parents, sightseeing and bouncing around to their different vacation homes. It was such a wonderful experience. I never thought I'd experience something like that, but the adjustment was easier than I expected. As we headed back home this week, we stopped by to visit my parents, 45 female and 47 male. While there, I mentioned that this summer felt like what all the summer breaks of my childhood should have been. and how excited I was for the future when my partner and I have children and can give them this treatment. My mother apparently took incredible offense to what I had said and said they had done the best they could for me as a child. I replied that I never claimed any differently. The argument ended with us still not seeing eye to eye, and my husband and I made an early departure than we had been planning on, thanks to the tension in the house that remained. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. You can be honest about your childhood by saying you were poor. Saying my childhood should have been like this when your parents didn't choose to be poor is a huge a-hole move. It was just so easy to adjust. Someone please take the silver spoon out of Opie's mouth. You're the a-hole and ungrateful. Not everybody marries rich. Your parents loved you despite you draining their income, didn't they? I'm sure they would have had a more lavish lifestyle without having to raise you, but they did the best they could for you. Damn, imagine treating your own parents like this. I will never understand how people can be like this. The only thought in my mind is getting to a situation where I can do things from my mother who did her best with 3 children after a nasty divorce. We didn't have the picture-perfect childhood, but she did her best to provide for us, and we had it better than most people would have in our situation, and the only thought in my mind is, how am I ever going to be able to repay my mother? You're the a-hole. What your summer breaks should have been? How utterly insensitive and hurtful. Your parents didn't choose to be poor. No one does. It's shocking that you don't see how unkind what you said was. Not just insensitive, but entitled as heck. Summer break should be a time kids get a break from school, and that's about it. The vast majority of people never jet off anywhere. I know mine were more like trips to the lake to swim or maybe camping. We got on a plane for a trip maybe twice before my 18th birthday, and my family was nowhere close to poor. For someone raised with very little, Opie sounds spoiled as heck. No kidding. My family was solidly middle class, but we surely didn't have elaborate vacations while I was growing up. And that certainly doesn't mean I was deprived or we were poor. Something tells me Opie is grossly exaggerating how poor she was growing up. More likely her family was working class or lower middle class. She needs to get over her entitlement. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not paying for my daughter to start yet another degree? My wife and I have 3 daughters. We always told them we would pay for their college tuitions provided they wanted to go. Our eldest, Hazel, graduated in 2018. She started at a 4-year university and lasted there 6 months before dropping out and coming home. We had to eat a lot of fees because by that point they were non-refundable. Her reason for dropping out was that she didn't want to pursue that major anymore. We told her she could switch to undecided or general studies until she did figure it out, but she insisted on dropping out. From there, she enrolled in the local community college, which was cheaper, but as we didn't qualify for financial aid, we were paying for all of it. She stayed through till the world fell apart in 2020. She tried online schooling, but it was too hard and we respected that. Our younger 2 were struggling with virtual school. I can't imagine how hard college was. She took some time off, then in January of this year, started at another 4-year college. Keep in mind, only some of her credits transferred, but we were supportive. Last month, she came to us and said she wants to drop out yet again and go to cosmetology school. I have nothing against that, but after spending tens of thousands of dollars on these other schools, she's got to pay her own way on this one. I told her if she finishes and gets her license, I will reimburse her, but she needs to figure out how to finance it on her own. She asked how she's supposed to do that, and I told her to get a job. She got upset and said I'm going back on my word. It doesn't help that this year our middle daughter graduated, and we're paying for her to go to a 4-year college. Hazel said this isn't fair, and I said I'd do the same to her sister if she was as wishy-washy. Now, Hazel won't talk to me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You've given her a chance and a backup. There comes a time when we all have to stand on our own 2 feet. Would Hazel qualify for an apprenticeship? Those aren't a thing around here. Cosmetology school is certainly cheaper than a 4-year school. Why not determine how much she would have cost at her 4-year school, and if she hasn't hit there, offer the rest as a kind of education budget? She's more than hit what a 4-year school would be. Not the a-hole. You've paid for 3 false starts. She can pay for the rest. And they're willing to compensate her if she finishes. That's a better deal than I ever got. Totally agree. She has to learn to finish what she starts. She'll just do this again if Opie agrees to her demands. Not the a-hole. You did pay. Twice already. She has a pattern of not finishing what she starts. I wouldn't want to pay for a third shot either. You didn't say I'll pay all schooling for all time, no matter how many different paths you take, and she shouldn't pretend that you did. You're right that if she's serious about this, she'll pay for it since she's now been given reassurance. You'll reimburse her if she finishes. You're still offering to pay, but only after she shows she's serious about it and has completed it, not before. You're being more generous than I would be at that point. You still have 2 other kids to pay for, and maybe she'll finally understand how generous you've been if she has to foot the bill for once. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for cutting my daughter's financial support off and monitoring every cent she spends? I'm so livid right now about the entire situation that I can't see straight and make a fair judgment. My daughter is heading off to college this year. I and my wife both decided years ago that if/when she went to college, we did not want her working to support herself. Well, now that time has come, and we've been working on ways to make sure she can fully focus on her education. I and my wife budgeted out a monthly allowance for her, along with her tuition payments. A big part of this is that I want to also teach her to budget out her money and figure out how to handle her own purchasing. While she was still going to live at home while she went to school, and it was made clear that though she could still eat with us and use some of our stuff, we expect her to start buying her own necessities and prepare her food. We also cut back on our grocery bill to an appropriate amount to only cover my wife, and our other child. We decided this would take effect in June, and made sure for months that she would be ready for it. We taught her how to balance a checkbook, income versus expenses, the basics of cooking, etc. To say the first month was a disaster is an understatement. Within only 11 days, she had blown through her entire monthly allowance. This was not an insignificant amount either. We gave her $1,000, and she blew through it in 11 days. She does not pay any rent, utilities, health insurance, etc. She had no clue how she blew through that much money, but I figured it out incredibly quickly. She spent $500 alone eating out, $300 at Walmart and who knows what, and the rest on gas somehow. Again, in a car she does not pay for at all. She then asked if it would be possible to increase the amount of money she was being given. I lost it. I held nothing back and told her there was no way in hell this was going to happen again. The experiment was over, and there was no way I was going to give her a single cent of unsupervised money. We spent months teaching her, and I mean literally every weekend I was teaching her how to be a responsible adult. I told her that I was the most disappointed in her I have ever been at that moment, and she knows I feel I have failed as a parent. We are not rich, never have been. $500 out of every one of my paychecks is a very, very noticeable amount. I've been monitoring her like a hawk ever since. I give her no more than $20 cash, and if she ever wants to use her card, she needs to tell me the exact amount so I can transfer it over. This has not been easy and has caused strain in our relationship. I just tell her now she can get a job if she wants, because then at least it's her own money. Now though, I'm getting backlash from extended family who have learned what's going on. My wife is in firm agreement, but now I'm second-guessing myself. Edit, the amount of money I gave her is rightfully being looked at. It was way too much, and I think I realized that probably soon after she spent it all. My budgeting, in my mind, was $300 for groceries, $200 for other essential purchases, $200 for gas, and $300 for school-related purchases/surplus money. I overshot but didn't care because I thought whatever she had left over could go into savings, and she could have a good chunk of savings just in case. What this has taught me is that I've taken this personally and allowed myself to become nihilistic towards my daughter. Her attitude set this all off, and I feel that is truly what I could not forgive about this. My parents never would have dreamed to do this with me, so when she spends $120 at a steakhouse paying for her friends, when we have not gone out to a steakhouse like that pretty much ever as a family, I felt disrespected that she dared ask for more money. I was naive to give her $1,000 like this, or to really expect that this adulting experiment would have worked out. Gonna step back and rethink what my priorities should actually be and what I need to take away from this all. I have to say, you're the a-hole. You waiting until your daughter was 18.5 years old to start teaching her any kind of basic adult life skills? No freaking wonder she's not good at it. If you wanted her to be plug-and-play functioning adult, you should have started years ago. You only have yourself to blame for this. Also, one failure and then you conclude she'll never learn? Not if she isn't given the chance to learn. Was she stupid with her money? Yes. But then she needs to feel the consequences of not being able to do anything or go anywhere because she can't afford it for the next 20 days. I'm not saying give her more money, but you basically showed her swimming videos, then dropped her at the deep end of a pool, and when she struggled, you scolded her, pulled her out, and forbade her from ever going to the pool again. Micromanaging is teaching her nothing but resentment. Exactly. She's never had a chance to actually spend money on her own. They should have started sooner and with a smaller budget. She has to learn by doing. Otherwise, she's going to have zero control over her financial habits once she's on her own. Everyone sucks here. It was first month and she did a big screw up, yes. But if she's only allowed to screw up once, you're setting her up for failure. Also, did they brought her to food shopping before all of this? Does she know how to cook at all? If the answer to both questions is no, no wonder she went on to grab food from takeout. She probably doesn't know how to manage stuff. And while she can't be totally excused, this is a good time to teach her how to do those stuff. Opie's response is way too extreme and will not teach the kid to be responsible with money, and can in the long term prepare the kid to be financially mistreated under someone else's, because the thought is, I am not responsible enough with money, and I need to be under the supervision of someone else.